Can't see this. Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. It's Mike Dugan here, and it's our Hump Day. As we start this week, Hump Day Hangout, we are going to be talking to some of our friends, talking about training and how training affects the fireground, and how a good training department, a good training division in your department, good training skills, how they work and how they progress onto the fireground and help keep us safe. First things we want to do today is we want to let you know that our friend Bill Gustin is trying to join us. Unfortunately, we're having a little bit of a technical issue with him at the present time. We also would like to thank Key Fire Hose for sponsoring our Hump Day Hangout today. That's keyfire.com, a great fire hose, and we appreciate them sponsoring us. I'd like to welcome our guests and have them introduce themselves. First and foremost, we have the boss, the man in charge, who's a little busy and will be joining us today for part of the hangout. Hopefully he can stay for the whole thing. But Bobby Halton, and Bobby, please.
Hi, I'm Bobby Halton. I work for Penwell Publishing. We put out Fire Rescue Magazine, Fire Engineering Magazine, Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment, GEMS, all serving the firefighter community. I'm the editorial director for the first three, Fire Engineering, Fire Rescue, and Fire Apparatus. We've got a conference coming up in April that I hope you can join us at in just 11 days at FDIC, where 35,000 locked-on firefighters are going to converge to take over 21 hands-on training classes, 80 workshops, and 211 classroom sessions. So if you haven't signed up yet, there's plenty of space still available. Most of the hands-on training classes are sold out. We have about 4 hands-on training classes that still have some openings, but the other 19 or 18 are sold out. But the workshops are open and the classrooms are open. Still plenty of hotel space down there. Indianapolis can handle about 100,000 people, so come on down. We'll see you in Indy in 11 days.
Clark, if you would, please.
Hey guys, Clark Lamping from the Clark County Fire Department down in Las Vegas. I'm a captain, usually stationed at Station 11 on Las Vegas Boulevard, B platoon, but I have taken a temporary assignment in the training division. So for the next 12 to 18 months, I will be the captain of training for the Clark County Fire Department. And I brought with me today my chief, Battalion Chief Chris Blackburn.
Yeah, I just recently got promoted to battalion chief. Been with Clark County for over 21 years. And I'll be running the training division. Glad to be in today.
Thank you both for joining us. And Darrell, if you would, please.
My name is Darrell Liggins. I'm with the Oakland, California Fire Department. I've been on Oakland for like 16 years. I'm a lieutenant. At a double house, we work on both engine and truck companies, so I split my time between both of those companies. Prior to working in Oakland, I worked for the Redwood City, California Fire Department, which is a suburb of San Francisco. I was there as a firefighter and engineer for 7 years, and since we're on the topic of training, I have not been assigned to the training division, but I go down there each academy to teach our recruit hose evolutions. So I spend most of my time away from the downtown area. My firehouse is Station 18, which is in East Oakland.
And my name's Mike Dugan. I retired as a captain company 123 in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and I did 27 years for the New York City Fire Department. And we're going to be talking today about training and how training works into the fireground. My dad used to say that proper preparation prevents poor performance. And I think for the fire service, that's a great acronym, the 5 Ps, because if you prepare, you train, it transitions to the fireground, and we get better, we get safer, and we get a lot more of our people doing the right thing. So when we're out there, when we're training, we talked a little bit before we came on air about officer academies and training our officers on the fireground. Clark, I'd like to start with you. I know you guys have a task book for your officers, And when they get promoted, they have to do this task book to get the job, to keep the job, to be tenured in the job. So would you tell us about that a little bit?
Actually, Captain Dugan, we don't have a task book for the captain's position. The probationary firefighter, he gets hired, he has a task book, he's on 9 months of probation. And then for the engineer position, the engineer has to go to an engineer academy. That engineer academy is pretty thorough, and I'd say when the engineer leaves the engineer academy, he's ready for about 95% of what he's going to see on the job. Captain level, on the other hand, we have minimum requirements to take the captain's exam. Once he passes the captain's exam, we're put on a list in order of rank, finishing what rank you finished the list in, and then one day the chief calls you up and says, all right, you're a captain now, so go ahead and go. No, there's no task book. There's a probationary period, but you're not directly supervised by your battalion chief on a regular basis. Now, for the battalion chief level, and Chief Blackburn here will be able to speak about the battalion chief, what he had to go through for the battalion chief task book. But my department, I believe that the captain's position is the most important and influential position in the whole fire service. And I think my organization needs to be doing more to train and to equip the captain for his position.
Clark, what prerequisites does your department have to take that exam? Is it state certifications, or do you have an officer's academy prior to taking the exam or taking the job? Right.
You have to complete 3 college courses, which are tactics and strategies, basic firefighter 1 level stuff. You have to complete Introduction to Company Officer, which is an IFSTA course, and then you have to complete, we just added it, legal aspects of the fire service, and that's by Kurt Verone. We use his book on that. So you take those 3 courses, you have to have your ICS 100, 200, 700, 800. I think you have to have 300 too, don't you? Yeah. ICS 300 as well, and then you have to have an officer candidate school is what we call it, OCS, and the officer candidate school, it's telling you what you need to know. Here's how you enter training in the computer, here's how you use the telephone, here's how you, pretty basic stuff, here's where the captain fits into the organization, but it's pretty basic stuff. And the problem with the candidate school is, Daryl, it's just a prerequisite, you check that box, and you might not pass the captain's test for 2 years after that. So in 2 years, you're going to remember how to enter training in the computer? We have a disconnect there, and that's where our problem is.
Yeah, and I think the problem could go both ways. We do have a task book. We don't have the prerequisites that you described to take the exam, but the task book will cover those issues after someone then receives the badge. To take our test, since I asked you the same question, we have to go through California State Fire Marshal courses to, I don't know how many it's up to. When I got my certificate, it was 8 classes. I think it's up to like 12 courses or something now to take the exam. But once somebody gets promoted to any of our promoted ranks, lieutenant captain or battalion chief, they have task books. And our probationary firefighters would love to hear that your probation's 9 months. Ours is 18 months. So they're there for a while with a very extensive task book. And the task book for the lieutenants covers some basic things such as writing in the journal. We still have a journal, entering runs in the computer, filling out injury paperwork where you may spend time with someone from Human Resources on how to properly fill that out. We spend a day with a fire prevention officer doing a building inspection. And then at the captain's level, it gets a little more involved where maybe the lieutenant covers a fire in a single-family dwelling, spending time with the battalion chief and covering what's expected of them if they're in command of that incident, where a battalion chief or a captain may spend time with a high-rise or hazmat incident, something of that nature.
Clark, Chris, real quick, do you have the lieutenant's rank? Daryl keeps mentioning the lieutenant's rank. Do you have the lieutenant's rank in Vegas?
No, we don't have that rank. One thing I wanted to chime in here about when we're talking about this training and assessment of the new company officer, for example, we do a really good job here in Clark County on taking care of the paramedics. So when we get a paramedic straight out of school, we've got a very detailed form that's filled out. So every event that we go on, every call that we run, when we get back to the station, the preceptor that's taking care of this new medic will go down this line item list. And it covers everything from communication, documentation, scene control, patient assessment, treatment, delegation of tasks, report writing. It's very detailed. And we assess every paramedic on every call after the call. And that's really something we need to develop for the company officer, that when you get back to the station after you run a building fire or an MCI or a traffic accident, you get back to the station and sit down with your mentor and kind of go over a line item task sheet that lists all the skills performed, and there's some assessment done on how the captain performed on those skills.
And I hate to interrupt. I think Daryl had some great points. I didn't mean to cut him off there, but I think that it's fast. Two things are fascinating that came up to me, and I'd like you guys to expand a little bit on it. The lieutenant's rank, or the company officer rank for Clark County, is the only one that doesn't have a task book. But as I think, as Clark said so well, it's probably the most critical rank in the organization in terms of directly affecting how we deliver service and how we take care of our people. Also, I love the idea about having a preceptor even on the fire side, as we have on the EMS side, or a mentor or a role model, because I think the concept of role models has been diminished over time in our industry, in society as a whole, but specifically in our industry. And I always loved the example that I read a few years ago about a park in Africa, and I can't say the name of the park, but they're trying to create a pure herd, if you will, of elephants. So they had some young female elephants that they populated it with, and then they got some orphan male elephants. And what they were trying to do was create a pure herd, get rid of some inbreeding issues that they had in other herds. But what happened was, after about a year or so or two, they found that there were a bunch of rhinoceroses around the park that had been killed, raped and killed. Now, there's a pretty short suspect list for raping and killing rhinoceroses. And so what they found was that these young male elephants that normally don't mature until they're about 30 were maturing at about 15, and they were banding together in gangs, if you will, and they were raping and killing rhinoceroses. And so to solve the problem, an old hand there on the farm brought in some adult male elephants, and within a few weeks everything returned to normal. So the role of a mentor, the role of having a role model, having a preceptor, having someone to bounce things off of and learn the rules of the road and the unspoken mores and norms that we need to conform to in order to be societally correct, are just as important in our industry for our operational stuff as they are in developing, how we mature as young mammals, for lack of a better word. And I guess it's easy to use the example of the elephants because it's not directly, getting anybody's sensibilities worked up over social issues. But the role of the role of the preceptor, I love that idea, and I'd love to see that expanded in the fire service. Sorry, but talk more about your mentoring program, about your programs, because I think what you have is great, but where you're going, I think, is even greater. And by the way, Chris, I think it's a training issue. So I think.
Hey, thanks. And I apologize for hijacking the conversation there.
I see someone just joined us.
Who is it?
I'm here. The trials and tribulations of trying to do this hangout when you're on duty is a little fast. Can you guys hear me? See me okay?
Yeah, you sound a little quiet, but we can see you just fine. You look more beautiful than ever.
Yeah, I just used to Dust for Men, trying to take some of that gray out. I just want it to be salt and pepper. So,
I used it this morning too. How's it working?
Yeah, it's working real well. I'm this month I'm live from Battalion 5's working chief's office here, and we're all on duty. I've got a couple of guests that we're going to do some cameo appearances, but let's continue. And as far as my friend Mike Edwards, who's going to make an appeal for organ donations, now that we've already begun the discussion of today's topic, I figure it'd be more appropriate if Mike comes on in the last, say, 5 minutes or so of the webcast. So, but I do want to make some introductions if I could. Nick Morgado, who is in training. He's a fellow captain, and is very instrumental in helping us get online today. And then Captain Mike Edwards, who is my counterpart on Rescue 2. And Chief, why don't you come in here, our boss, Chief Todd Garafalo, and he's nice enough to let us borrow the office today. So
thank you, Chief.
Thank all of you. So go ahead. I'm intrigued with this discussion of the mentorship, and I think we're heading in the right direction with this. So if Clark and his buddy want to continue to elaborate on it, I'm fine with that. Well, one of the things that we do in the FDNY, we bring all of the officers together in whatever rank they're going to be. They go to school, and we work your network. And what we talk about is, now you're with captain. You used to be a lieutenant, or you used to be a fireman. Now you're with lieutenants. So we work and become friends with people in that group who you can use, who you can go to if there is a problem. So you have people in the same boat. And a lot of times when we put people of the same rank in the same room, we start talking about problems, they're going, oh, you had that problem too? Wow, I mean, what do you do with that one? About this one? And things like that. So we work your network, I think, is a really, really, really good idea for us to have people in our present rank that can mentor us, even people who rank above us, who can mentor us about what has happened when there is a problem or when there is an issue, and find out from them how they handled it in their experience in that rank.
You know, it seems like the battalion chief's rank is one of the more unique ranks for us as far as mentorship goes, because just as we were talking about paramedics having a mentor with them, a set of training wheels, I guess you could say. Each position on the engine, the engineer, if someone wants to become an engineer, we have someone drive, and the engineer sits in the back and kind of coaches them along for the day. If you're a firefighter becoming an officer, you've observed, working with an officer for several years before you're ever in that seat. But when someone becomes a battalion chief, at least in my department, or in my former department, we don't really have a position where you can sit along with the battalion chief on a regular basis, like before you become a paramedic, an engineer, or an officer. How do you do it in FDNY or Clark County or Miami-Dade to prepare someone for a battalion chief's rank?
In the FDNY, when you go to our school as a captain, there is a captain, because captains do what they call ride up. We're acting battalion chiefs. So you got a whole class on acting battalion chiefs. Now, if you are on a list to get promoted, you priority go to that space. And then before you even get promoted, you are going to be taken offline for 6 weeks and sent to a battalion chief school for 6 weeks, where you are going to get the things the job wants you to have before you do it. You're going to go down to a high-rise for a 2-day drill at a high-rise building. You're going to go to a construction site underground, maybe the 2nd Avenue subway, where they're digging out the subways. You're going to see what's going on. You're going to go with different companies to see what the things are. You go with the utilities to learn about how they work. And at each rank, you get that training. So you are getting mentored. And then in that group, you start to become friends with people in that group. And now you have a network of people to go to when there's an issue.
Sounds fantastic.
So I'll let you know how we do it in Clark County. They recently put together a task book for the battalion chiefs that passed the battalion chief promotional exam, and the task book had a couple dozen different items you had to fulfill. But one of the most helpful was we had to do a ride-along with the neighboring communities' battalion chiefs. So in Clark County, there's Henderson, Nevada, there's North Las Vegas Fire Department, the City of Las Vegas. And so I had a ride-along official for several reasons, but primarily because we do a lot of mutual aid and you have to run into the battalion chiefs and neighboring departments. So it was helpful to kind of get an understanding of how their department runs, the nuts and bolts, and logistically how we work together. And of course, building the relationship was good too. And as far as the department itself, I had to ride with our battalion chiefs. And, you know, there's a lot of logistical things that go on, office work, how to run the staffing, how to enter sick and vacation time. We also spent time with payroll for payroll issues, with a computer guy for how to do computer issues. So they kind of just outlined a lot of the duties and responsibilities of the battalion chief, and then made the battalion chiefs go spend time with everyone that we'll have contact with in the future to kind of build a relationship and understand the roles that they function in.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Captain Dugan.
Yes, sir.
Your mentors, are they assigned mentors? Are there specific guys, or is it just anyone who wants to help a brother out? How do they choose those at FDNY?
Usually your mentors are going to be the people in the area that you're assigned to. So when you get promoted, let's just say when I got promoted to captain, I went to the 15th Division, okay? Because you're not allowed, because it was so big, you're not allowed to go back to where you came from. They don't want you going back and supervising guys you were a fireman with. So we have the ability to do that. You go to a whole different borough, okay? So your personality problems and everything else go someplace you don't have those issues. So when you go there, you're assigned to a battalion, and you're a floater, you're covering. You just go around and fill in vacancies for sick, vacation, or whatever else. You fill in for those vacancies, and you start to learn what's going on in those things. Now, you have to go to your chief, wherever you're assigned, to see them, to get your mail, to get your payroll stuff and things like that. So you have to go meet with those people, and you learn a little bit about meeting with them. Also, the deputies, the division chiefs, which are over all the battalions, most of the divisions have 8 or 10 battalions, maybe 12 in them. The division chiefs are going to find out who the new officers are, and they're going to come out and visit them and talk to them about what they expect in that division. Because, again, sometimes there are different rules in different places where, you know, this place isn't as crazy about uniforms as the other one is. This one's more worried about uniforms. This one's worried about other tasks, whatever they are. So you're going to find out what is the standard in that area and what you are expected to do. And those mentors are going to be there. So if you have a problem, they will come and see you. You can call them up and ask them. And I always like to tell the story. I went to a call as an acting battalion chief, and I was flabbergasted. It was, I don't know if you've ever been, we call it an EMS carry down, and it was a very, very large woman who wanted to be carried, are carried down frequently, because they can't get down, the ambulance people can't lift them, so we have to put them in a Stokes and get them down out of their buildings. This was an EMS carry-up. About 3 o'clock in the morning, I get the call as an acting battalion chief, go to an EMS run as a battalion chief. And I pull up, and it's like Battalion 38 was the battalion I was working in, EMS run. And I'm like, EMS for the chief? So I have the guy, my aide, because the FDNY has drivers. We have an aide who does a lot of the work, helps the chief out logistically. And I go, an EMS run. So I get up right on the radio, and I'm like, 38 to Brooklyn, K. Battalion 38, EMS run. And the dispatcher comes back, 10-4, Chief. We have an engine, a ladder, and a rescue company there, and they've requested a battalion chief. And I'm like, okay, this is a weird one. So I go there, and there's a very, very large woman who wants to be brought upstairs into her apartment. Now, I've never done this before. And I talked to the officers, and it's a very small staircase, probably about a 36, 38-inch staircase. And she's been out all day, and she can't get herself up the stairs. And they tell me that we carry her up the stairs because of her size and everything. We're going to hurt her and have to take her back down. I immediately get on the phone with the deputy chief because I've never done this before. Chief, I've never done this before. What do you say? And I had to wake the chief up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And he's like, don't take her up the stairs because we can't get her back out or anything else. We're going to hurt her. Tell her we'll take her to the hospital till she gets her strength back. They'll give her some hydration or whatever else, but we are not going to carry her up the stairs. And that was it. We didn't carry her up the stairs. She went away in the ambulance. The next day, the chief came right over and said, stop by to see me. Good thing you called me. That was a smart move. And he is empowering me to make those decisions again. And I just thought it was a really, by the chief to come over, even though I woke him up at 3:15 in the morning. He said that is the way to handle things. If you're not sure, ask for help from the people around you. And that's what I did. And that was, to me, was a huge, huge, huge win. And him coming back and saying to me that was the smart thing to do made it even better.
Yeah, it definitely seems like we have some formal processes that we could go through, like, task books and training and officer schools. It definitely seems like the most successful people are taking initiative. I mean, we don't have as formal of a process for some of the ranks, like going to a school, but if someone knows they're going to, they want to promote to the rank of battalion chief, they spend time with them. They put themselves in that position. They go over to the office if they're in that battalion house and find out the administrative work they have to do, learn their way around the buggy and the radios, and virtually put themselves in that position as much as possible. We all have people that complain that they weren't trained on this or that, but we can't rely on those processes. We have to take initiative and put yourself in that position. I work with a fantastic guy. He came to me. He worked with me for a couple of years. He said flat out, I want to be a lieutenant. And at every turn, when he can learn something with the job, if somebody rang the doorbell and said, hey, I want to have my a school visit, you'd ask me, hey, who do I call? How do I set this up? If I have to enter in inspections from a commercial inspection, he wanted to enter them in, and he put himself in that position, and he ended up getting promoted, and he's doing really well. And he didn't rely on these formal processes.
Now, Daryl, that process you speak of, is that something required from your department, that they have to log so many hours of riding along and things like that, or is that just something that the guys who are really motivated, they go and do on their own?
No, that would just be purely taking initiative and being motivated. The task book would be our formal process. That is required to get off probation. We have a probationary period for all the promoted ranks.
And I think
we don't want to go. We've prior to some of these formal processes, we've all worked for people that they get the job and then they're trying to figure out how to enter an inspection, or order paper and pins for the firehouse, or towels, or getting repairs for the rig or whatever. And these things should have been learned on the job by just taking the initiative a long time ago.
Yeah, I find it interesting and entertaining that you said something that we have a problem too. And these guys, they sit around, they do nothing to help themselves, and yet they cry that I wasn't trained on this, I'm not prepared for this, yet they've never taken the initiative. And I don't know where it came from, but one saying that I really like is, minimum requirements eventually turn into maximum expectations. And it is so true on so many levels of our job.
Just recently,
and another saying, certifications aren't qualifications.
Yeah.
Fellas, can you hear me? Yep.
Barely.
Barely. Okay. I'm gonna yell. Do you hear me now?
I can hear you
Yes.
now.
Okay. Just recently, our department has made available for Fire Officer 1 and the Fire Officer 2 training classes for prospective officers. And it is not a requirement as of yet, but it will be, and I am all for it because I think that a grade on a promotional examination is a very narrow criteria to measure the capability of an officer, including the desire for them to, as Daryl said, take the initiative and educate themselves prior to that taking that position. So I'm all for it. You can have a photographic memory, you can have a real good day, a lucky day, or maybe a very unlucky day, and bomb the exam you've been studying for 2 years, and you're out of a promotion. So I'm glad to see that this additional training is going to become a criteria, a requirement for the promotional process.
In the city of New York, Bill, we call it having one lucky Saturday. And if you have 3 lucky Saturdays, you're a battalion chief. And, you know, I mean, I know guys who have passed the test when they weren't prepared and they didn't really care. And I know guys who studied their heart out for 3 or 4 years. And I mean, we have a picture of one of our former chiefs of training standing next to our books, and he's resting his elbow on the books as he's standing up, because it's about 9,000 pages of books from all of our internal books. And we have guys who really study and study hard and do very, very well, and the guys who don't study at all, and they get lucky, and now they're out there and they're like, what do I do?
Yeah, and I think we all have that same story.
Hey, Captain Dugan, who's our sponsor again?
Key Fire Hose. Okay, and our buddy Bill Gustin loves Key Fire Hose. It's keyfire.com, and Key Fire Hose is Billy's hose of choice on his rig. And we love Key Fire Hose, and we thank them very, very much for sponsoring us and for bringing you this Hump Day Hangout.
I give them a hearty endorsement, fellas. Yes, we do have key hose on our apparatus, and I think it strikes the best balance of flow capability, flexibility, heat and abrasion resistance, and weight. And I heartily endorse it. So that's an easy one for me to endorse.
Now, let's talk about other training. At the New York City Fire Academy, they do a drill. They do take companies out of service, and they do a fire drill, and they call it the MOAD, the mother of all drills. And they bring out 3 engine companies, 2 ladder companies, and they put them together, and they give you a fire scenario. They're going to give you a fireman in trouble. They're going to give you a Mayday scenario and everything else. And a lot of it works. They bring out a battalion chief. The chief is going to have to manage the communications on the fire drill. The company officer is going to have to manage communication plus manage people. And it's a really, really very, very progressive, good drill. What do you see in fire academies throughout the country that transitions well to the fire ground as far as training? Because when I started in the FDNY, we used to go to the fire academy. We call it the Rock. We used to go to the Rock, and there would be on the calendar, the firehouse calendar, Rock Alert, and you would have to go take a test. And they'd ask the newest guy, okay, you'd all be sitting together. What's the answer for question 1? What's the answer? And they would be testing your reading ability, not your knowledge or anything else. You tested of manuals in the fire service. And I don't think that is really what we want. We want training that transitions to the fire ground, training in scenarios and the things that we're going to need, communication and things like that. What are you guys seeing out there that works very, very well in the training aspect that transitions to the fire ground?
I can speak for my department. I'm going to put one of our my bald-headed brother on here, Nick. As far as the in-service training, after watching hundreds of firefighters and dozens of companies run through the same drill scenario, and what it is, it's a low-rise apartment where they have to bring in a supply line and wire it off and attach hose extension pack. They found a pattern of where the mistakes were being made, and we corrected our procedures based upon trial and error. So I'm gonna ask Nick just to comment on it just for a minute, because I am very proud of our in-service training program, and Nick is a training captain, in-service training captain, has a lot to do with that. So if you, my bald-headed brother, if you would take the stage here for a second.
Sure, I'll step in here briefly. Good afternoon, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Bobby, it's good to see you again, Chief. Good to see you as always. Like Bill said, about a year or so ago, we started with a year-long endeavor to go ahead and run as many of our frontline officers and firefighters through a low-rise scenario with an interior hallway, and I said it was wide off on the second floor. In our policy, it didn't specifically state where the hose had to be laid off, so we allowed them to go ahead and choose where they would put it, whether it would be on the floor below or in the stairwell itself. And what we saw is that whenever they put it in the stairwell, it turned into a big mess. There was obviously a cluster on the floor below, also with instructors eating up space, and they really ran into some difficulty. So what we did is that we kind of stepped back and we went ahead and started walking them through refresher skill stations before just putting them into the scenario. So we went ahead and we went ahead and ran them through about a 45-minute PowerPoint presentation just for a little bit of a review of what we expected, as well as what we expected them to do as far as hose deployment and hose management. One of the other components that we noticed is that with the searches, they were not utilizing the TIC, so we went ahead and incorporated some TIC-guided search. And so we turned what was a 2-hour drill into about a 4-hour drill, give him the expectation, the tools in the toolbox, and the current mindset to go ahead and move forward with what we expected him to do, and we were met with better success. So we started out with one expectation, had to gear it back a little bit, and go ahead and give them the tools necessary, as well as change what we were doing as far as we didn't want them. We didn't give them the option to go ahead and put the hose in the stairwell and lay it on the floor below, charge it there, set their pattern, and go ahead and team up with another crew and move down. And we were met with better success, and it was actually pretty well received.
That's excellent. That's excellent.
Nick, can I ask you, where did you find most of your issues occurred? Did you find most of the people had similar issues with the training, and what were some of those issues?
Believe it or not, one of the biggest things that we found that really also fixed the problem is that we typically team 2 crews together, whether it's 2 engine companies or suppression companies, or our 2 rescue companies, which are our ambulances that have firefighters on them, whatever you want to call it. But we would team them up. So you had 6 people that were going to team up to set this hose up and deploy it down the hall. And what we found is that if there was not one person in charge, the operation typically had difficulties, meaning that you had one person that says, this is the way that we're going to do it. Because we had instances where you had one crew said, this is the game plan, that's what we're going to do. The second crew showed up and said, no, we're going to do it this way, and started changing, or they were working against each other. So we needed that strong officer in the stairwell to go ahead and say, this is the way we're going to do it. And it definitely worked out much better. But when the hose was left or deployed in the stairwell, there were multiple kinks. They had difficulties once it was charged to get the line, the proper pressure, and even to fix the spaghetti, if you will, of the mess. And sometimes they even had to start over. But by getting it out on the floor below, having that one officer really dictating, what's going on in that stairwell, putting it on the floor below, really made it a lot cleaner. And this is just with no occupants, trying to evacuate in the stairwell, as we're setting this up. So we were met with much better success with that.
Nick, after you did the program and identified the problems, did you then turn around and run everybody back through it under the new protocols? Do they now all understand the new protocols?
Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that we did that with some companies, especially the ones that really had trouble the first time. They obviously wanted to redeem themselves, so we obviously brought them back. But for the most part, most crews were met with good success. Obviously, there's always ways to improve. But you know, obviously, if they had a real difficult time, we made arrangements to go ahead and bring them back. You know, and out of 1,800 guys on the line, we were able to get close to 1,300 guys at least once, and that was in a year. So it was an endeavor, and it was a learning experience for us in the training division, as well as, you know, the crews that were involved.
Excellent.
That's one issue that I have seen in training, not just being a training captain, but all the way from the beginning when I was a probationary firefighter. These drills we conduct, we typically don't have enough time to do them multiple times. By the time you finish the drill, reload, restock, all that stuff, you don't have time to go through the drill again. So a lot of times what happens is, hey, sorry you messed that up. Go back to your station and talk about it. We don't have time because there's another crew coming right in behind you. We can't let you run it through again. So not giving the people an opportunity to make it successful for themselves creates a bad attitude. They drive out of it thinking, man, forget those guys in training. That was a dumb drill. Those guys don't know what they're talking about. Rah, 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 rah. You know, we as instructors need to make these people successful, give them all the tools that we can with the limited time and equipment we have, make them successful. And one thing that we started doing is the monthly training on the computer. We tell them, we're going to do this drill. Here are the specifics of the drill. Here are all the links you need on this type of hose lay, this type of ladder evolution. You guys do all this, and then on this date you're going to come and you're actually going to do hands-on, and you're more than welcome. You are more than welcome to practice at the station. Go find yourself a parking lot, practice, get ready, and this really improves the success rate of these individuals. What did you say?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I also think what Nick said about, you know, the companies that had a major issue, and it happens on every department. If they have a major issue, bringing them back, because again, if you keep them there too long, if you run them through the same drill 2 or 3 times in a day period, now they think you're punishing them. So you want to be able to bring them back another time so you can say you've improved your skills and worked with them to get them better at what they're doing, and I think that's great.
One of the other things that we just started doing is that that refresher portion that we were doing in the beginning, we're now delivering it to 1 or 2 officers within a particular battalion. They take it back to their battalion, run them through the skill set that we would like them to perform, and then when they've run through all of it, we pick a time and a date, and when we bring them back and we give them the environment, including with live fire, to go ahead and perform the drill and the skills that they went over, whether it was the month before in the battalion drill or as individual company drills, but they got the information and the skill set and they practice it, and then they maybe rewarded with a live fire burn at the end and in the environment to go ahead and perform. So we just started doing that and you know, recently.
Nick, have you guys always married 2 companies together to get that first line in operation, or was that something you guys were trying?
No, it's been something that we've been doing for a while, and it kind of just happens regardless, because you know, once they start making that hallway and there's no one on the floor below or in the stairwell to even manage the hose, it really kind of gums up. So it kind of always happens naturally. But it was one of our expectations. Look, when we went over in the beginning, is that we want you to team up 2 crews together, give you guys 6 guys to go ahead and move that line down the hall.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That seems really important. At the end of the day, it seems like training is just creating habits and then having people, you know, perform what they did in training on the fire ground, and you're just going to fall back on your training. I work with a guy, and he has this saying. He says, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall back on your training. And I think it's absolutely true. It's not always just going to work out. And as you're mentioning this, having that strong presence, getting that line and organizing everybody to get that line in place. In my position, and as we mature in this job, we change some of our habits, and we learn along the way. We're all learning from each other. But as a officer for several years, I always, you know, we don't have 5 or 6 people on the engine, and we're lucky to have 4 where I am. But I always put myself behind the nozzle firefighter as the backup person all the time. But as of late, I found it's much better for me to be in what, you know, Ray McCormick calls it the umpire position. I may initially be behind that nozzle person, but if I can get off the line and just help coach, all the members and be in that position to make sure everything is going well and put someone else in that position, I find it more successful too, as you did.
And I also think one of the things that came across is that when we're doing drill, it's important that in the appropriate positions, we move our folks around as much as we can so they get to experience the other, whether it's the nozzle position or the backup position, or that's the holding the irons, or using the sledge, so that they experience while you're doing the drill as many times as possible during the training session. Because I really think that the great philosopher Will Rogers had it right. He said some men learn by watching, some men learn by reading, but most of us got to piss on that electric fence.
We recently had a high-rise building available to us, an office building where we operated portable master stream devices, and broke that down in an advanced 2.5. And we would position the people strategically along the line at the change of direction, stair landings. A few people on the floor below. I know that Clark, you and I have discussed this about bumping people up, bump up on the line. As the amount of hose on the floor below diminishes because it's being advanced onto the fire floor, you need less guys, less mules, if you will, on the floor below. But just recently, what we would do, Bobby, is we would just keep running, snaking that anaconda like a knucklehead. That's my cell phone. Snaking that anaconda down the hallway, around the corner, and into the office suite several times, and back it back out, rotate your people, because, it's an entirely different function operating, as I say, a mule on the floor below or on a stair landing and being on that nozzle team. So I'm all for that rotation of people.
Absolutely, and it's good for everybody to realize how important each of those positions are, because we all want to be on the nozzle and none of us want to be the mule, but we'll realize how important it is through training and feeling how important each position is. That if those mules aren't there, you're not going to get the nozzle to where you need it to go.
Anybody
Positions-
who's ever been on the nozzle knows how important all those other positions are. As the nozzle man lament is heard at the fire, more hose, and then they say a few other choice words, more hose. Okay, anybody who's ever had a poor backup person behind them on a line knows how important those other positions are. So we all know the importance of them, and we have to work together to make sure that we know that we have people who are available and willing to do and learn those jobs.
Absolutely. And, as far as the military goes, think logistically how many people it takes in different continents, all the different factions of the military, to get that one guy to the desert in Afghanistan with a bullet in his gun shooting that gun. What does that take to get, everyone can't be shooting the gun, all right? What does it take to get all that equipment to where it needs to be and shoot that gun? Same thing.
50 people.
50. That's it?
50 people to get one soldier into the battlefield. He's got 50 people behind him.
Yep.
Bobby, could I introduce my, because I know we're going to be getting towards the end of our session. Could I introduce my friend, Captain Mike Edwards, and have him do a brief appeal to the organ?
Oh, please do, Bill. It's your show. And then after the captain, I want to invite everybody to join us on our webcast immediately following. We're going to be doing a great webcast on toxic exposure on the fire ground and how wireless gas detection can improve firefighter safety and survival. Amazing webcast, our friends from Ray Systems. So please, Bill, this is your show. Go at it, Bray.
Thank you very much, Bobby. Mike's a dear friend. He's my partner on the ship that follows me. He's on the rescue company. And he's going to tell a story, and it's actually quite touching. And fellas, we all see people that have injuries that are not compatible with life, that it's only a matter of time before these people are going to expire. And it's a waste for these people to go to the crematorium or be buried with perfectly good parts that could keep somebody else alive. So that's the story that Mike wants to tell. Michael, take the floor.
Thank you, Bill. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to speak for a few minutes on behalf of organ donation. Very grateful to be here. As Bill said, my name is Mike Edwards. I'm the captain on the 8th shift here. April, across the country, we celebrate the organ donation awareness. And before this year, I was never involved in such a thing. But unfortunately, when my baby daughter was born, she was diagnosed with liver cancer at the age of 2 months. Since she was diagnosed, we've been through many rounds of chemo, surgeries to remove tumors, and it ended up that an organ donation saved her life. Would it have not been for the donor, my daughter definitely would not have been here today. She's getting ready to celebrate her 2nd birthday coming in June, and we're very thankful for that. I didn't know anything about organ donation before going through this process with my daughter. I was fairly ignorant to it. Even though we had a campaign on the fire department to support this awareness throughout the years, it was kind of just another sticker on the truck or another memo that came out. But I can tell you that I lived through this, and it's something that needs to be talked about by everybody, and being able to reach out to firemen that are just like myself. If I could get the word out to you guys, have the conversation with your crews or your families about organ donation. You don't want the time to come to decide if you want to be an organ donor to be in time of the greatest despair of your life, given having to make the unfortunate decision if you want your family member that is receives organs to be donated or not. That shouldn't be the first time that you have that conversation. So I got a couple pictures of my daughter here that I'd like to share with you guys. I don't know if you guys can see it, but this was
nice.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
This was the day before we went into surgery. That's my wife and my daughter, and she was in end-stage liver failure. And I can show you this picture right here. This was a couple days ago. It says that she's still cancer-free and that she's doing fine. I can tell you that what I've learned about organ donation is that there's not enough donors in the pool. My daughter was diagnosed when she was put on the list for a donor, in years past she would have received an organ within 2 or 3 days. It took us almost 3 months to receive the organ. And what that caused us to do is me and my wife traveled to Pittsburgh, which was the closest place to donate a piece of our own organ in order to attempt to save her life. And that didn't happen. We ended up getting a deceased donor. But the impact on us is that we need to get the word out there. You can register. Every state has their different rules. You can register through the Driver's License Bureau. You can look up donatelife.org. There's a lot of information out there. But I can tell you that I'm an everyday fireman, that we've had, probably just like a lot of you guys, our family hasn't had any health issues, and this has come just completely out of nowhere. So anything that you guys can do to help spread the word, I would appreciate it. And thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you. God bless your daughter.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Bobby, for giving Mike a chance to talk. And I know I definitely will make sure that my family makes that decision. And now it's close to home. Now you can put a name with a face. Before it was just something that happened to somebody else.
Captain Dugan, didn't one of your guys a year or so ago, didn't they do a bone marrow donation, and they found a donor, some guy from the FDNY, donated bone marrow to someone in New York?
We have one guy who's donated it 3 times.
3 times.
We have a wall of life. Every probie, when you go to probie school, you are a brand new member of the department. You are offered the opportunity to become a bone marrow donor, to register with the bone marrow registry. I'm registered with the bone marrow registry. I'm also on my license. Is the organ donor right at the bottom. It's stamped. It's already done. Both my wife and both of my daughters are organ donors. God forbid anything happens to any of us. It's already known. So if you have an accident, they look at your license. They know you're an organ donor. So I think it's the greatest thing in the world. And we've had guys donate kidneys, donate bone marrow. We have a wall of life, and they get to meet every year. They have a breakfast for the people who people have donated for. It's pretty wild. And yes, we have one guy who's done it 3 times.
Wow.
Registering for the bone marrow is so easy now. We just did that at every firehouse, and the first time I registered, you had to draw blood, but now it's just a swab with a Q-tip or something. It's pain-free, it's easy, and yeah, you could save someone's life.
And by the way, I would just like to again thank Key Fire Hose for sponsoring this Google Hangout with all of us today, talking about training in the days before FDIC and how it progresses to the fireground. Keyfire.com is their website. Please visit Key Fire Hose. As we all know, Bill Gustin loves Key Fire Hose, and he uses it, and we appreciate their continued sponsorship of these Hangouts. In closing, I just want to say I think training, proper training, moves onto the fireground very, very well, and it pays immeasurable dividends. The more you train, the better your department becomes, and that is what it's all about, being safe on the fireground. And it's just like anything else. In the fire service, they mesh, they come together, and they become stronger, locking together and working together.
Absolutely. And the chief and I are both, we'll see you guys at FDIC. We don't just sit here and preach it, we practice it too. I've been at FDIC multiple times. I've been to multiple other conventions across the country. But absolutely, if any of our listeners or viewers out there run into us at FDIC, please come up and say hi. And the chief, he's newly promoted. He's got a new paycheck. He's going to buy you guys some beer. All you guys out there, right?
Excellent. Excellent. And Clark, congratulations and the best of luck on your new position and training.
Thank you, sir.
Darrell, anything else to say, Darrell, in closing?
Well, I had got a photo from my firefighters. It was about a year ago, and if it motivates anyone to get out there and stretch hose into buildings, if you can do it. Unfortunately, I didn't make the fire, but we went to a vacant apartment building. We were stretching lines, practicing doing that, and then one morning I wake up. I was off duty that day, and they send me a photo of that apartment, same apartment we just stretched lines to, burn up, and they just had a caption, "Do you recognize this apartment?" I said, "You gotta be kidding me." And they said they looked like stars there. They knew right where to spot the rig. They knew how much hose it was going to take, and it keeps me going.
Well, listen, if I could just ask one thing, join me back here in an hour. We're going to be doing a webcast. It's going to be Reduce Your Toxic Exposure, how wireless gas detection can increase firefighter safety. Now that we know so much more about all the carcinogens and how dangerous hazmat scenes are today, wireless gas detection is so important to firefighter safety. It's a critical webcast, great training, absolutely free. So join me back here in about 55 minutes.
And
Right,
I
we'll
want
see everybody in
to
FDIC.
say I'm looking forward to going to FDIC. I have a little thing that I say about FDIC. FDIC for me is like crack. It's crack for firemen. Okay? Once you taste it, you can't get enough of it. I want to go back every year. I've only missed one, and Bobby was very upset. I got very, very sick 2 years ago, and I had to back out of FDIC because they wouldn't let me fly. It's the first one I've missed in 16 years. And it is the greatest time, and I look forward to seeing you all at FDIC. If I see you there, please say hello. And I can't wait to see my friends in real time and say hello. And Bill, my brother, please take us out.
Okay, thanks everybody. I thought this was a great, Mike, it was your idea to take on this topic as a lead into FDIC. And I really think it was most appropriate. I like having my buddies here. That's always, I want to introduce everybody to 100 of my closest friends. Again, I thank Keith Firehose very much for being able to sponsor this great get-together. And I believe that is keyfire.com, is it not?
That's true.
.com. And again, it's an easy endorsement for me because that's what I use, and I'm very pleased. So everybody stay safe. Hope to
We'll see you in a couple of weeks at FDIC.
We will. All right, fellas.